I'm going to just wait a moment here. There we go. Right. Good evening and welcome to tonight's live event from Thriving Dentist, the community dedicated to helping dental professionals run practices that are as profitable, less insurance dependent, and deeply fulfilling. Now, tonight's discussion, Speak Up Without Blowups, the proven framework for resolving conflict and building high trust dental teams, tackles the hidden drain that erodes your practice's profitability and your peace of mind. Unresolved team friction. Now, I'm your host, Dan Adisha, and alongside our three expert panelists, we are going to uncover actionable strategies to stop the blowups, bridge the gap between your clinical and support teams, and create a culture that actually builds your wealth and retention. Now, we would like to extend our gratitude towards the sponsor of this event, Equa Marketing. We'd like to give a massive thank you. Eco Marketing, founded by Naren Arora, the very same founder of the Thriving Dentist, alongside Gary Takes, of course. And for nearly 20 years, Equa has helped dentists across the globe stop being the best kept secret in their town. Um, Equa supports a dedicated client base of over 500 healthcare practices, and they believe that great care deserves great visibility. Now, here's a quick tip from our team at Equa that matters for every dental practice today. Many clinics want more book visits, but end up with low quality leads or high marketing costs. With AI giving fast answers right on screen, potential patients choose quickly. So, ask yourself this. When patients in your city search for implant dentist near me, Invisalign costs, or veneers before and after, does your practice show up as the trusted choice? Most practices deliver great care but lose visibility online. The right digital setup, strong reviews, clear service pages, and simple calls to actions help you attract serious patients ready to book. Now, stay with us. We have a great resource for you that will help you understand exactly where you stand and what steps to take next. So, before I hand over the floor to our experts, let's look at the roadmap for tonight. We are going to break down why conflict inevitably arises in dental practices and, more importantly, how to spot the early warning signs before a blow up happens. We'll share exact frameworks for addressing tension without putting your team on the defensive, especially when handling disagreements between dentists, hygienists, and supporting staff. Finally, we'll look at the role of emotional intelligence in building a psychological safe environment where honest, productive communication lives. Now, let's meet the panelists who will be guiding our conversation here tonight. Our first speaker knows what it's like to watch practice potential slip away through front office chaos, and more importantly, exactly how to stop it. After 25 years in the industry, she realized that systems, not just effort, determine success. Today, as the founder of Blossom Dental Consulting, she helps doctors and office managers turn administrative friction into streamlined efficiency. Please welcome Monica Watson.
Thank you, Don. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to speak to our audience on such a important topic. So I'm glad to join all of you today.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here, Monica.
Mhm.
Appreciate you taking time. Now, next up, we have a leader who bridges the gap between clinical excellence and the realities of human behavior. With a doctorate in education and a background that spans from public health advocacy to life on a farm in Iowa, her no nonsense, evidence based approach is transforming how clinicians are trained globally. As the senior manager of clinical education at PDT, she knows what makes teams tick. Welcome, Dr. Emily Bogie.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to share some time with you all tonight.
Absolutely. We are honored to have you here, Dr. Bogi. Thank you. Now, finally, our third panelist brings an incredible rare dual perspective to the table. As both an internationally trained dentist and a highly experienced dental office manager for 123 Dentist in Toronto, she understands the unique pressures of both the clinical and the business side. She specializes in building conflict resilient environments where both emotional intelligence and operational excellence thrive. Please welcome Dr. Anviti Kalekar.
Thank you, Don. That was a great introduction. I'm glad to be here and share my day-to-day experience of my office and my day-to-day what I do here as a practice manager.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Dr. Kalekar, for taking the time. Now, let's get into the thick of it. Okay. So, my first question goes out to you, Monica. Across the practices you advise, what are the recurring conflict patterns that you're seeing in 2026, and what operational pressures are driving them?
Thank you, Don. So it seems like we're already 3 months in, but it feels like it was just yesterday. It was New Year's Day. The issues that I'm seeing right now is I feel like offices are putting out fires instead of trying to focus on preventing them. So I feel like there's a lot more attention needs to be brought to um, uh, putting out problems before they arise to be a bit more
Hmm.
forward thinking. Some practices are trying to get through the day, but what I'm hoping practices will be able to do is focus more on planning for things like even something simple like in the morning huddle. If an emergency calls, where do you want your admin team to put them instead of reaching out to the dentist and trying to find the best place to put that patient. So what I'd like to see practices do more of is uh, planning for these hot issues when stresses occur. Um, so another example would be I feel like when people have systems that work, uh,
Okay.
they're better prepared and equipped for issues. Um, and even just having really good communication between front and back office and um, and having a really strong handoff. Because I think when you look at most issues in the dental practice or even any industry, it's really down to communication. So I think any practice that can improve the communication is going to be more successful. And I'm sure our other panelists may agree as well. Just being able to communicate more effectively will really help practices in 2026 and beyond.
Right. Can you give us an actionable advice when it comes to, emergency treatments? What's your take on that? How can we best handle that?
I think admin teams should have a intake form for when a patient calls. Have a form of the questions to ask because I think you need to equip your team with what you're wanting to know. So when a patient calls with a toothache, having the admin
Mhm.
team ask the right questions to the patient so that that can be communicated to the dentist and set the
Mhm.
patient up for being able to uh, have a successful visit and be brought out of the pain, and also setting expectations for the patient. Like we will take care of your pain, but we may not be able to place a filling or do a root canal today, but we'll address the pain so that the patients have an idea of what to expect with a visit to the office
Mhm.
when the office doesn't really have a planned set appointment for them. And then also being able to communicate to the clinical team what the patient shared over the phone, I think helps
Mhm.
set up both the clinical team and the patient for a successful emerge appointment.
Amazing. Love this. And I think we're going to get into more details along the way as to how to exactly do that. Now, Dr. Bogi, recall a recent team breakdown you observed in either clinical or educational setting, and what triggered it and what impact followed after.
Oh, there's so many. I used to think when I was in private practice, when I get out of private practice and I do something, in the corporate world or I do something in education, there's going to be better communication. And so then I went into education, and guess what? There was communication issues there too. And then I went into corporate, and guess what?
Mhm.
Communication, and Monica hit the nail right on the head. So a situation I have seen on more than one occasion in more than one type of setting or role of the dental professional in both clinical practice and education, it's when communication just kind of falls through the cracks. And when you look at specifically during patient care, one specific case I'm thinking of, so as a hygienist, I identified some pretty clear periodontal concerns during a
Okay.
patient assessment. I documented them, I got the staging and grading correctly, but then when the dentist came in to do the exam, I didn't quite verbalize correctly what I had found. And so the dentist moved forward because she had places to go, people to see, other patients to see. And she just kind of took the reins, which is her job, right? And so it was on me as someone who didn't relay the information and communicate that information correctly that I had gathered in the assessment. And so she didn't realize that I had found a deeper periodontal concern because I didn't verbalize it in a manner that got to her before she started saying things out of her mouth. And nobody was really doing anything wrong necessarily because she was behind in
Mhm.
the other room and she came in to do the exam and just right away got started. And so it's
Right.
more of a like a workflow gap than a
Exactly.
competence issue, I think.
Yeah.
People get behind, but the impact of being behind is really real, right? So
Mhm.
I think that the best thing to do for our patients is not leave them without clear treatment guidance and have
Mhm.
a set pattern established. So the provider that's been with the patient for the last 30 minutes gets to speak first and get all the information out and convey that before the doctor and the patient really get into a lot of that small talk, chit chat stuff, because then you don't want to turn around and interrupt the dentist that's come in to do the exam. And so you have to really have that comfort level. I think part of the concern a lot of times is when we have temporary staff or when we have a team member maybe that isn't quite as familiar with working with each other. Once you gain that familiarity with each other, you get that cadence of working together all the time. And I think what this whole experience reinforced for
Mhm.
me as a young hygienist
Right.
is what we talk a lot about in dentistry. Good teams don't just rely on assumptions. They
Right.
build these small communication checkpoints and they build these
Okay.
systems that Monica referred to earlier so they can hand things off. So right away, if the dentist comes in and says hi to the patient, how's it going, whatever, then they immediately look to that colleague and say, what did you find today? Or what's your verbal handoff? So trading the control of the conversation over in a more fluid manner can really prevent a lot of confusion later on. It really can.
Amazing. I was just curious as you were saying this, Dr. Bogi. Um, it's a bit of a tricky situation. I mean, after, when you're working with someone as a new staff member, you might be shy, you're getting to know the ropes. Um, whose responsibility is it to address this kind of situation? Was it the dentist? Was it the practice managers? Ensuring that, before a handoff is completed to the dentist, that the previous provider spends 30 seconds, like you said, with the dentist saying, here, I found this periodontal, deeper periodontal issue over here. Um, or how does that go?
I think a lot of it has to do with familiarity. And
Okay.
at the time that this occurred, this specific instance, I was a young dental hygienist that hadn't been in the office very long, and I didn't really know the systems. And so having a training period where you can have more senior members of the team who are in the same role really give examples of how to do that trade-off of patient care, maybe observing, maybe spending more time with a more seasoned hygienist before I jumped into patient care. And then some of it isn't a perfect process. You can't have every answer perfect because it's a human interaction, right? If we could replace that human interaction with AI, that would be a different conversation. But fortunately for us, that human element in care is still absolutely necessary. And so, not only the human element of care, but the human element of working together interprofessionally.
There we go. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Bogi. Now, Dr. Kalekar, inside multi-location practices, how is the emotional strain showing up between dentists and support teams today?
So, from my experience managing multi practice, emotional strain is showing up more frequently than now than ever, because
Okay.
interestingly it's not always visible on the surface. It shows up in subtle ways. First is the tone change, then is the shorter communication, as Monica pointed out, and then the hesitation to ask questions, or even teams avoiding conversations altogether. And if not addressed earlier, this becomes into a larger conflict. So
Mhm.
in this multi-location setup, the challenge is even greater because consistency becomes harder. Each provider have a different way of working, communication preferences, our expectations from the entire team. So for support staff who are rotating or managing multiple providers, it becomes really difficult. And that creates an emotional fatigue, I feel. As Monica said, the what I have observed is emotional strain comes typically from communication gaps. The second one I feel is the time pressure. The schedule is running behind. We have to be on time. That is the time
Mhm.
pressure which brings up the emotional strain. And the last
Yeah.
is the misaligned expectations. If we are not
Mhm.
clearing up what the role is, what are the expectations, expectation by the patient, by the dentist, by the hygienist, then it becomes an emotional strain. To give you an example, recently we had where a situation where the dentist had a fully packed schedule, starting from simple restorations to complex extraction. The procedure took longer than expected, and that is completely normal. Extractions sometimes
Yeah.
do take longer, but what followed is the emotional strain. That showed up. The front desk started dealing with the delayed patient frustration, emotional impact of the patient, and they were repeatedly being asking for the updates. When they reached out
Mhm.
to the dentist, for the timeline, but the dentist was clinically so focused, then they replied abruptly, "I'll let you know, don't disturb me," right?
Mhm.
So now this is from the dentist perspective, they were under intense clinical pressure and needed
Yeah.
focus. But the admin's perspective, they felt unsupportive and they were exposed to the front in front of the patient. So to
Yeah.
that emotional strain wasn't about the attitude; it was about both sides operating under pressure without a communication gap.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so this is something I see quite often in multi-location practice because teams are busy, communication becomes reactive rather than
Mhm.
proactive. So
Mhm.
yeah, this is what I would feel that these are the three things that time pressure, communication gap, and the last thing is what expectations are out of the team.
Mhm.
Dr. Kalekar, how did you solve this problem?
So I address the issue not so I believe in not addressing the issue right there in the heat of the moment. I believe in tackling it privately after the patients are done.
Mhm.
First is I have started building buffer time. Like, for example, in the morning huddle, we discussed this is the extraction patient might take longer. So let's keep a
Mhm.
buffer time. The second thing is a quick 30-minute update. Like every
Yeah.
30 minutes, if the doctor is running late, maybe assistant can quickly go out and inform the admin that please push the next patient 15 minutes or 30 minutes later so that the patient is comfortable and they feel informed and respected about their time. So these are the
Mhm.
two things I implemented: morning huddles and quick update by the assistant.
Got it. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Kalekar. Now, Monica, when production demands rise, how should practice leaders balance revenue targets against time for team dialogue?
But before I answer that question, can I comment on the previous conversation?
Yes.
So what I've seen in practice that has worked really well. So when the dentist is like you said, Dr. Calavar is having a really challenging extraction, I feel the admin team can really step in to support the next patient. And I've seen them talk to the patients saying, thank you so much for your patience. The doctor is dealing with the patient in their chair and giving them all their attention. When it's your turn, they will give the same attention to you. And then for admin teams to say, I acknowledge like we're running behind. Your time is important to you. Are you okay to continue waiting? Or would you like us to reschedule? I think when you give the next patient the option, you let them know what's happening and they know the dentist is caring for the patient in their chair. And when it's their turn, they'll receive the same care. I think that goes pretty far where the patient that's waiting uh, would appreciate that. So they're given
Mhm.
the option of like, would I like to continue to wait or would I like to maybe
Yeah, reschedule.
reschedule?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I've seen that work several times, and I'm like, you know what? That's always the best scenario that I've found. Maybe the other panelists might have some suggestions of what's happened that's worked well. Because I think when you're everyone's trying their best and they're acknowledging we're running behind because that does happen, but we're wanting to be considerate of the next patient. I think that says a lot about the really having good customer service and really showing care to both patients.
That's true. And it
Completely
shows better
agree. It's almost
system.
like when you choose to wait, waiting is easier. So
Yeah.
like if I'm in line at Disney World and it's gonna be another hour before I get to ride on the ride, but I see the little sign like 45 minutes wait from here, I'm cognizantly choosing to wait, right? And so
Mhm.
I think that's a fantastic. I'm gonna have to write that one down, Monica.
Yeah. Choose to wait.
Yeah, that's from a good dentist that I worked with. That I can't take credit for that, but I saw that I had a good outcome. Where I think when you make every patient feel cared for, even if they're waiting, it goes a long way.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that, Dr. Bogi, really summing up perfectly, choosing to wait. Now, Monica, back to our question
Okay,
here,
I'm ready.
if you don't mind. So, how should practice leaders balance revenue targets against time for team dialogue?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, I might take that question and run a different direction with that.
Sure.
Um, I think it's important to have targets and goals. I don't disagree with that. One of my favorite ways of having targets and goals is actually doing schedule templating. Uh,
Okay.
I'm not the kind of consultant that likes to run really hard numbers. I'm not I'm not very numbers focused, but I'm numbers cognizant. So I think when you plan your schedule well, and I like dentists, like what's a good day for you? When do you want to have your tough surgeries and kind of like your dollar value appointments? And most often for dentists, that's in the morning. And then scheduling new patients, specs, emerge, easy single restos in the afternoon. I think that goes well. So get your kind of your meat and potatoes done in the morning. Uh, and but not every dentist likes that kind of schedule. But for me, I really like to push dentists um, to plan their day and just schedule certain appointments. And I feel like it works well with the administrators too, knowing when to book things. So I'm a
Mhm.
huge advocate of schedule templating to have certain appointments at certain times of the day or certain days of the week, because you can kind of plan your numbers that way and go from there. And I think it's nice for the administrators, the dental assistants to kind of know where things are going to get scheduled. Not now saying that not every dentist likes that. Maybe they like to have a little bit more variety, but I think it's worked well when dentists have scheduled certain types of appointments, implants, gum grafts, certain times of the day, and then the little extra things outside of that. Maybe Dr. Calavar and Dr. Bogie might have some further insight for that. But I'm a big advocate of schedule templating, kind of plan
I love
from
that.
from there.
Okay. Dr. Calicar, Dr. Bogi, do you have Anything to add on to that by any chance?
No, absolutely. If we are if the schedules are pretty much planned, the day works accordingly. So
Mm.
yeah, I agree with Monica.
We always
Right.
did that too in practice. We had what were called rocks, pebbles, and sand,
Yes.
where if you
Okay.
fill your entire day with sand, then there's no places for the rocks.
Hmm.
And so if you have your day and you look at it like an open jar, you need to place your rocks so there's room for them. Otherwise, at the
Mm,
end of the month, you're going to say, all we did was, hygiene checks and we didn't get any other,
Hmm.
solid work done to keep the lights on. And so that's the approach that we took was exactly what Monica had mentioned.
amazing. Rocks, pebble, and sand. That's so
Yeah.
easy
Thank
to,
you
Really
for
nice
adding that.
example. Yeah.
yeah, so easy
Yeah.
to think about and
Hmm.
understand as well. So, Dr. Bogi, what criteria should leaders use to decide when a conflict requires structured intervention rather than an informal resolution?
I love talking about critical conversations. It's one of my favorite topics. Um, First of all, I think it's always better if you don't have to get leadership involved. I
Okay.
think that there's really three things that you need to look into when you decide whether a situation needs more formal upper management involvement. And
Hmm.
on a dental team, the upper management involvement usually means office manager or practice owner or lead dentist. And some DSOs or DPOs, that means there's different definitions as to what that leadership is truly defined as. But I think there's really three things, and those are the impact on the team members, and then the pattern of behavior of the individuals who are involved, and then the overall impact on patient care. And so when we talk about the impact on the team, if it's a disagreement that is starting to affect that the way the day runs, maybe appointments aren't flowing well because those two people are avoiding that conflict situation, or because tension is so high and a resolution is required so we can actually make our team function. The second
Hmm.
is the pattern of behavior. So every team has, a little hiccup from here or there. That's normal. But if the same issue keeps popping up with the same people, whether it's communication or scheduling pressures or confusion about your roles, it usually means that it's not just a one-off situation, and there's probably either a systems issue behind it or a personnel issue that needs to be addressed. And
Yeah.
third, and in my opinion, the most important is the overall impact on the patient care. So if there's
Wow.
even a small, little, tiny chance that two humans that work on the team are producing a tension that's going to affect the quality of patient care, such as, a diagnostic miss or a treatment plan miss or an infection control miss, that's when I think that the leadership really needs to step into the conversation. And
Hmm.
like Dr. Kalakar measure had mentioned earlier, I really think that these critical conversations are best when they are held away from the patient. But sometimes if it's a critical error that may occur and it becomes more of a risk management situation, then I'm going to interrupt your petty bickering situation. That's when we need to pull people in the hallway, or maybe I used to always say pull people in the dark room, but that shows my age, doesn't it? Um, but when the conflict starts to impact workflow and morale and patient outcomes, it's really worth slowing down and taking the time to address it in a very intentional manner. I think it depends when you say conflict resolution,
Yeah.
what type of conflict we're talking about too.
I'll give you a conflict because one of our registrants actually asked a question regarding this. So, how do you effectively manage an employee who consistently avoids accountability and frames feedback as unfair?
So I'm a 1, 2, 3 person, and I
Okay.
always have been. I think part of it is because I'm a really big family. I'm from a really big family. I'm one of 11 kids, and that's the way my parents always handled conflict, and so I think it always stuck with me. And so when we were in the office, we would say, okay, one time this happens, we give them grace. The second
Mhm.
time we have a conversation about it. The third time we write down the conversation we had about it. And anything above three times becomes a very serious conversation. And that's the same thing I carried into my leadership position at the college. I used to
Mhm.
tell students, I'm giving you the handbook the first day of class, just like you
Yeah.
were an employee in an office. You screw up one
Mhm.
time, I say, okay, Jane, on page 3 of the handbook, it says that we don't do this. You screw up the second time, I say, Jane, we've had this conversation before. I'm going to write this down. And then the third time becomes a situation, right? And so
Mhm.
I'm big on second chances and even a third chance. I think the key with that is that people are given their expectations in a written manner.
Yeah.
You're told verbally, you're given them in a written employee handbook, and when you know your expectations, it's a lot less likely that you're going to be able to get away with things. And that's why I have always been a huge fan of written handbooks.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Bogey. I think clarity is kindness. So the best thing that you can give to your team is setting expectations. Everyone understand everyone else's roles and tasks, and and when everyone knows what the expectations are, it almost sounds like a relationship. When you when you know what the expectations are, you really can't be disappointed. You can really be held accountable. So I think the unfair thing is when you're not communicating the expectations and what you're needing to have done on a daily basis.
And I think when leaders allow the same situation to happen one time, two times, three times, it
Mhm.
sets a standard for the rest of the team.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I always like to go back to my time at the school because I learned so much in those 10 years of my career. Um, if I let every student get away with something three times, I would have had a revolt on my hand. I had 75 students.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you really have to control the situation when you still can control it. Otherwise, it becomes out of hand. So the sooner you address those problems that are behavior patterns and not just one-off problems, the better off you're going to be.
There we go. Thank you very much, Dr. Bogey, Monica, for tuning in as well. Now, I want to pause right here because Monica just mentioned something crucial regarding clarity, and clarity is kindness. The same clarity you need internally with your team, you absolutely need it externally with your marketing. So, if your internal house is in order but your chairs are empty, the stress just makes, or rather, takes a different form. So, our sponsor tonight um, has a wonderful gift for our attendees, and I would like to share that with y'all. Here we go. So, our sponsor tonight, Echo Marketing, understands this clarity internally needing to be reflected externally perfectly. So, Naren, the CEO of Equa, as well as the founder of the Thriving Dentist, co-founder of the Thriving Dentist, has generously offered a gift to everyone attending tonight, a completely free marketing strategy meeting, usually valued at $900. Now, this session is built to answer one key question. When patients in your city search on their phone, AI assistant, ChatGPT, or Google now, Gemini, for implant dentist near me, Invisalign costs, or veneers before and after, or any of the services that you provide, does your practice actually show up as the trusted choice? Now, in your strategy session, you'll sit down with a senior marketing analyst who already works with thriving dentists and clinics across the globe, and you'll get a live audit of how you can attract more clients, build your reputation, and grow sustainably. The marketing analyst will actually spend several hours researching your online presence, your competition, your local SEO, everything. And they'll come to the call ready to walk you through custom recommendations just for your practice. This session is designed to help you answer those questions and fix anything that's not quite working. It's usually a $900 session, completely complimentary for you tonight. You'll see a QR code on your screen. You can scan that with your phone to book your session or check the chat for a direct link. It'll take less than a minute to book. Availability is limited since, as I mentioned, every audit involves real research into your local market. So perhaps here's how to think about offers like this. What's the risk if you say yes? Honestly, it'll just be your time. There's no obligation whatsoever. But what's the risk if you don't? You might be missing out on something that could really help you grow your practice in 2026 and beyond. So I'll leave that with you, but truly, I encourage you to grab this opportunity, book your session with Equa. It'll be time well spent. Right. And back to the main questions here. My next question is to you, Dr. Kalekar. In a hierarchical dental environment, how do leaders choose between maintaining authority and inviting dissenting input?
Honestly, I don't think it's a choice between authority and dissent. I think most effective leaders learn how to balance both.
Mhm.
Dentistry has been traditionally hierarchical. The dentist is the clinical decision maker, and the structure is important because patient care ultimately depends on their responsibility. But where the challenge arises is when the hierarchy limits the communication. In today's
Mhm.
fast practices, no single person sees the full picture. The front desk understands the patient expectation, as Dr. Emily said. Hygienist sees the behavioral pattern, and
Yeah.
assistant often notices the workflow inefficiencies. So if the
Mhm.
leader is relying only on authority and not taking the inputs, I think they miss the critical insights.
Mhm.
What I have learned is that the strong leadership is not about reducing the authority, it's about making authority more informed. Let me explain it with an example. We
Please.
had a recurring situation where patient wanted appointment on a specific day after their initial exam, but the dentist wasn't available on those days. So the front desk was facing the pushback from the patients, while the dentist felt frustrated that their schedule is not respected. So now, if we handle this purely through authority, the answer would be the dentist's schedule is fixed, end of discussion. But that would create an ongoing friction for the front desk and the dissatisfaction of the patient.
Mhm.
Instead, what I have invited inputs from the admin team. I have asked them, what are the patients asking for most often? Why are we losing them? What objections are you hearing daily? So this gave me a valuable insight that we wouldn't have seen from the clinical side alone.
Yeah.
So then we align it with the dentist authority, of course, by creating a structured solution. The dentist clearly communicated their treatment plans, treatment days, in the exam room. The admin team was trained to position that scheduling around the quality of the care and not the availability.
Okay.
And then lastly, we offered the closest optimal alternative rather than just saying no. So we
Mhm.
didn't remove the authority, we strengthened this by integrating team inputs. I think
Mhm.
that that's the key shift leader needs to make. Authority should define the direction, and but the inputs should refine the execution.
Wonderful. And I just want to ask, when you put this into place, right? So you have the front team at the front desk team, or rather the admin team asking, why are we losing them, right? You're basically asking the patient, why are we losing you? How did you get that information from the patient? Was it a SMS, a feedback survey, email?
So there are many, yeah, the feedback is most important. When you
Hmm.
ask the patient what exactly is the problem,
Hmm.
where have we been lacking? So you're taking an input from the patient, you're taking a positive feedback, negative feedback from the patient. So that's how I
Yeah.
also came to know that this is where the gap is.
Hmm. And is that communicated verbally? That's what I'm trying to understand, like, or
Yes,
how is, yeah.
it is communicated verbally,
Hmm.
but the online reviews also shows us exactly
Okay.
what's going on in the practice.
Okay.
The language, for example, they say the team informed me very well. So that's the best way that they to understand that the team did their part. So when the
Hmm.
patient uses this language, you know that the admin team and everybody is uh, contributing and is actually taking care of the patient.
There we go. Understanding the language of the review itself really brings clarity.
I think it's
Um,
also important to ask the patient questions before you get to the review stage. I think the review stage, so when someone writes a Google review, you've almost missed your opportunity because you don't know if the review is going to be positive or negative. I think it's really important to train the whole team, like clinical and admin team, to ask patients questions and to empower them to explain why a dentist does a certain thing. So if a patient really wants an afternoon root canal and the dentist is does root canals in the morning, you want your admin team or even clinical team to be able to explain why. I think you can even give negative news in a positive light. You know, the dentist is at their best in the morning. That's when they're the most focused. So that's when we want to be able to provide these types of appointments. I
mhm.
think you can say anything in a or in a positive light, so that the patient's like, oh, okay, that might not be work well for me, but I get why you do it that way. And to always ask patients, how'd your appointment go today? Ask them questions um, to get feedback and not wait until the Google. I think that's the Google's when you get some honest feedback when you kind of miss the opportunity to ask them before that stage.
Ditto. Got it. Now, Monica, which observable behaviors signal that a practice culture has truly shifted from avoidance to constructive conflict?
To constructive conflict. What do you
Oh.
mean by constructive conflict, Don?
Con I think constructive conflict means that everyone will have a resolution and they're happy with it at the end of the day.
Mm. For me, I'm huge on communication. I want teams to constantly be communicating. You can't over communicate. You can only under communicate. So when you're asking your team every day, uh, is there anything I can do for you to make your day more successful? Is there any resource you need? What challenges are you facing? I am huge at asking lots and lots of questions. I think when your team stops talking to you, that's when the culture is broken. You want
Mm.
to create a culture where your team feels comfortable to give you any negative or positive feedback. Uh, so I encourage teams to ask a lot of open-ended questions. What do you need for me? How can I support you today? I'd like every team member to walk into an office every morning asking every other person on the team, how can I support you today? Because when everyone feels supported, the
Mhm.
team's going to function at their best. So
Mhm.
for me, it's never stop asking questions and never make anyone feel bad for providing answers. Make everyone feel comfortable to give you honest feedback without making them feel like your feelings are going to be hurt. I think honesty
Um,
is 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 where you can really create some uh, good teams.
right. I'm just curious over there when you're over communicating, and you said you can't really over communicate, but I'm just wondering when it comes to roles, and you mentioned way earlier on
Mhm.
with having exact expectations.
Mhm.
Where do you draw the line between over communicating from a roles perspective? Perhaps that's not in their role's best interest to ask about those certain things. For example, if it's a dentist's responsibility, if the admin is kind of uh, asking about, or rather bringing to their purview on things that are clinical, where are you drawing the boundary there, or is there no boundary?
Sorry, say that again. If the admin team's asking a clinical question?
Yep. So the admin team is wondering why the doctor, or rather the dentist, have done that clinical procedure when it could have been something else.
So what I advise teams to do is have a benefit statement for every procedure that their office does. So that when a patient asks an admin team or a clinical team member, they're getting the same answer. So what are the benefits of having a root canal? What are the benefits? of having any of the procedures that are done in the office. I think you want your any member of the team, whether they're clinical or admin, to be able to provide uh, the answer, and everyone should say the same thing. There should never be an answer
Hmm.
shouldn't be dependent on who you ask on the team member. So if a person's admin and they're not necessarily in the operatory, I think they should still have some knowledge to be able to share even layman terms with a patient of what's happening, what's the benefit of having treatment, so that everyone's supporting the type of treatment that the dentist is offering. Uh,
Right.
I
If
don't
I
like
I
to
may
see
think,
teams that
also
give
interject on
yes.
just the conversation. So what I'm hearing you ask, Don, is what if an admin person were to ask a dentist, well, why didn't you just do a crown prep, right? Why were you doing a filling? Why didn't you just do a core buildup and crown prep? There's so much of that tooth gone anyway. In
yeah.
my opinion, it depends if that conversation happened ahead of a patient
Hmm.
or whether it was a one-on-one conversation. Because I
Hmm.
think that is a great opportunity to really provide dental care as a team when we do cross-check each other. I think
Mm.
that I always worked in practices where we were working with each other and not for each other. And I had a greater respect for my employer. And I think that they had greater respect for me as a clinician because we were willing to have those conversations that, we would do case studies at our team meetings and say, how could we have done better for this patient? Or why did we get an hour and a half behind on this afternoon? Where we would talk about things in an open manner and have it be a safe space. And
Right.
you have to really be cognizant of it staying a safe space. You can't say, okay, it's going to be a safe space, but then I have a conversation with Becky, and 2 months later, Becky is still mad at me. Like, get over it, Becky, right? So we have to, like, if we say it's going to be a safe space, it has to be a safe space. And so I think it's healthy to have those conversations with each other, whether you are like the dentist in charge or the
Mm.
hygienist or whoever you are in the office. I think um, along those same lines, I've heard dentists go up to the front office and look at the schedule and say, well, why didn't you give me 20 minutes extra here? Or why did you give that hygienist 20 minutes extra over here? Well,
Mm.
respecting the fact that that admin knows how to do their job, right? But also the admin needs to say, oh, I hadn't even thought of that from a clinical perspective. And so I've always been a big fan of never saying, like, that's not my job or that's not your job, of really working collaboratively together. Like, I'll do anything in the office that you ask me to do if it's going to help us all get out of the office at the end of the day together. And so it's
Thank you
it's
so.
you
Yeah, go
either you
ahead.
either want to be on a team or you don't want to be on a team. So
There we Uh, yeah, Dr. Bogi, thank you so much for finding the correct words for the question that I was trying to ask there. Absolutely, that's a perfect answer. Cross-checking. Now, um, just to stay on here a little bit longer, my next question inside that whole thing that I asked is basically role clarity. Now, if you're cross-checking everyone and we're trying to over-communicate, I'm just wondering, how does that really affect role clarity?
I think that if you're communicating effectively and you have a solid employee manual that gets looked at least once a year, that you're going to have roles clarified in that employee manual, yes. But you also have this respect that if we're going to deviate from the role, we're going to communicate about why we did it. And we're going to be able to have a healthy, critical conversation and have a positive outcome from that conversation where maybe not everyone is, sunshine and butterflies about what happened, but we can all
Mm,
go home at the end of the day, cool off, and come back the next day and treat each other with respect and admiration. And
there we go.
so I think that's where the role clarity lies, is
Mhm.
having it written down, but then also knowing that we respect each other enough to check in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Bogi. Um, Dr. Kalakar, what's your take on this when you're looking at from a multi-practice perspective?
So as Dr. Emily said, the safety, the psychological safety, that the clarity that an admin can answer a clinical question, or a clinical
Mm,
question which ideally should have been answered by the dentist,
mm,
it's a big, um, where the admin has to have a line that, yes, I cannot give you a final diagnosis. This is just a basic knowledge of what I have, but definitely the dentist is the one who's going to go ahead and give you a final answer of what exactly has to be done. But since the basics have been explained to the patient, the role clarity as an admin is just to make them understand the basic, and the details would be explained by the dentist. So I think
yeah.
that is what, where the line should be drawn, and the role clarity should be done.
Wonderful. Thank you
And
so
I
much.
think we also have to know our patients, right? So we
Yes.
all have
Yeah.
patients that, they want to, when they say, ask someone what time is it, they want to be told what time is it, right? You have some patients that ask what time is it, but then they want you to tell them how to build a watch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you have to know your patients. How much information are they somebody who has to know every single little step? Or are they somebody like, no, this is why we're doing it. This is how much it's going to cost. This is how much time it's going to take. End of story. And so I
There.
think knowing the people that you work with and then also knowing the people that you serve.
Love this. Thank you so
Mhm.
much, all three of you, for really tuning in to that and fleshing it out. So it makes perfect sense now, with the benefit statements in place, as well as really understanding the patient, as well as internal role clarity, and just overall respecting each other, believing that we are adequate for the job that we are chosen to do. So now, Dr. Bogie, moving on, what guiding principles should shape conflict training for hygienists, assistants, and clinical educators?
I think we've hit on a lot of the guiding principles already, in my opinion. We talked about, we come out of school regardless of what role we're serving in the dental office without a lot of training on conflict resolution. Let's be
Hmm.
real, right? And so I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I have my doctorate focus was in organizational leadership and in education. And so I have a little more training than your average dental hygienist. But really it comes down to clear communication and having respect for other humans we interact with, and then keeping that patient as your focus. I'm a true believer that if you align with communication, respect, and keeping the patient the focus, then anything else can be trained. And
Hmm.
training teams on how to do those things and do those things well, I think that's one really great gift that a lot of my previous employers have given me is communications training. So learning how to know people's personalities and how to address people at the level and in the manner that they want to be communicated with. A great example of that is like my husband. When he
Hmm.
gets a dental appointment, he wants it put he'll put it in his calendar and in his phone, or he'll tell me and I'll make sure he's there. So you can text him 300 times, but if you don't text me, probably isn't going to be there, right? And so you have to know your patients. Whereas I'm the kind of person where if it's in my calendar, I'll be there. I don't need to be texted, I don't need to be called. And so knowing the people that you're serving and then knowing how to communicate. Just last week, I had my supervisor needed to give me some information, and she's like, "So, how do you want me to give you this information?" Just
Hmm.
prefacing getting information I may not have wanted to necessarily hear by asking me how I wanted to receive it. And
Mhm.
so just having the courtesy with another human of communicating with them and respecting them enough to ask them how they want to have conversations is a
Mhm.
great way to start.
I think that's good too with the team. When the team's so uh, in sync that they know how each one likes to be communicated to and their different personality styles. And when you start with the team and understanding the different personalities on the team, and then you can move on to understanding your patients. And knowing, okay, this is a patient that wants lots of details and information. This is a patient that doesn't want, they just want you to scale their teeth and don't talk to them. Like it's good to know what what kind of patient's sitting in front of your, in your chair, because it's not a one size fits all. Um, that's with your patients and your team. But I always say start with the team, understand the different dynamics on your team, perfect that, and then move on to working with the different kind of patients in your chair, because you kind of need to cater to the personality that's in front of you.
To add on to
Cater to the
this,
person.
I can say that if the admin teams can leave a little notes on the schedule, like this patient needs TLC, this patient has a birthday today. So that
Mm-hmm.
makes the personalization with the patient, and they actually like it. If you just call them and say, hey, on the note it says it's his birthday, and everybody just comes in and celebrates it. It's an add-on. They feel that yes, they know what I am, how as a person I am, and what's going on in my life. It's a small steps of adding something to the schedule.
It's all the small details that add up.
Yes.
One thing that I teach admin teams on their new patient intake form is I always ask them, you have to ask this question at the end of the call. Is there anything you'd like us to know to make your visit more comfortable at our office? And it's an open-ended
Mm.
question, and you'll be surprised at what information the patient will tell you. And then you share that with the clinical team. So when the patient shows up, you do exactly what they're needing to have a comfortable visit, a positive visit. So again, it's asking questions. If you can teach your team to ask the right questions, you're going to set yourself up for success.
Absolutely. That's the white glove service that
Yeah.
will definitely distinguish you in such a competitive market as dentistry. Now, Dr. Kalekar, just to round things off, what are some of the performance indicators that demonstrate strengthened communication is improving retention as well as patient experience?
So one of the biggest shift I have seen in the dental practice in the past 12 years I think, moving from thinking of communication as a soft skill to recognizing it's a measurable performance driver. So when the
Mhm.
communication improves, it doesn't just feel better. It shows very clearly in the key performance indicators. So what for me, the key performance indicators, I divided into three categories. The first is the patient's behavior. Second is the operational efficiency, and the third is the team stability. So, if I discuss patient behavior, I would say patient retention and reappointment rates is one of the major, clear and consistent way how you can make sure the patient is returning to treatments, to follow-ups. They understand their care better and they feel more confident and they trust the practice. That is one of the
Mhm.
indicator. Second is the case acceptance rate. So this is a big one. So when the dentist and the team communicate treatment plans clearly, not just clinically, but in a way that the patient understands, acceptance improves significantly. For example, what I used to do back when I was practicing was, when a treatment plan was created, I used to draw. For example, it's a root canal. I used to take a whiteboard and draw root canal, how a tooth is, how a root canal steps are done, how much time it will take. So this way, the patient don't reject the treatment. They reject it only because they don't understand it. They don't feel
Mhm.
confident. But if you are making a stronger communication and making them understand that, I think directly impacts your production as well. And finally, I will feel the feedback, patient feedback, as I said it before, the language in which we get the feedback. The team explained everything clearly. I felt comfortable and heard.
Mhm.
The staff kept me informed that this is my treatment, this is how much time I will take, and my follow up would be on this day. So in the end, it all comes down to communication.
Mm.
Absolutely. Right. Now, before we conclude, I would like to ask each of our experts for one final 30-second takeaway. If our audience does only one thing tomorrow morning to improve their practice culture, what should it be? We'll go Monica, then Dr. Bogi, and then Dr. Kalekar.
Okay. Thank you, Don. I think I probably said it before, but I think asking questions, open-ended questions, is there to your team? And then also to your patients, like ask them what their needs are and then listen. I mean, it seems really simple, but it is. Ask questions and listen.
Okay. Ask questions and listen. Dr. Bogi?
Um, I think my advice would be to leave your home problems at the back door. So when you walk into the practice in the morning, leave your garbage outside and come in with two intentions. First of all, to serve the patients, always first and foremost. And the second part is to listen twice as much as you talk. And not just listen to hear or listen to respond, but truly listen to understand.
Mhm.
Because I think it's really easy in a helping profession like dentistry to try to like hear what you're saying so I can respond to you so I can move on to the next fire I want to put out.
Mhm.
Whereas if you truly listen to understand and comprehend, sometimes the person doesn't want a resolution. They just want to be heard.
Mm.
And I have had challenges like that several times where I just get in a hurry and I listen to
Mm.
try to respond to someone and put their fire out. And sometimes people don't want a solution. They just want you to listen to them.
Got it. Very important reminder there. Um, and can't stress enough about active listening. Dr. Kalekar?
Yes, I agree with active listening because at the end of day, patients may not remember what the exact procedure has been done, but they will remember how you treated them in the office. So, um, if you listen to them, you acknowledge what's happening, and you listen to your team inputs as well. So it creates a altogether a good environment for the patient, and the patients realize it right. If they're coming in tension, they will realize it right then and there. But if everything were all of them, all of us team and patients are in alignment, I think it works well for the office.
Truly, active listening at the end of the day generates that great environment which everyone feels stepping into your office as well as stepping outside of it. Perhaps that'll be the difference maker where that patient might, will decide whether to return to your practice or not. So, thank you so much for those wonderful key takeaways. Now, before we close out here, right. So before we close, one last reminder, Equa Marketing is offering a complimentary marketing strategy meeting for our attendees. So when patients in your city search for services you offer, make sure it's your practice and not your competitors that's found and chosen. Links in the chat. One last time, book your session before it fills up. Now, uh, also, as we close this webinar, a short feedback survey will pop up on your screen. Please take 30 seconds to fill it out so we can continue bringing you exactly what you need. To our attendees, thank you so much for investing your evening with us. Building a high trust practice isn't an overnight task, but now you have a proven framework to get you started. Um, to Monica, Dr. Bogi, and Dr. Kalekar, thank you so much for your time, your transparency, and your absolute brilliance here tonight. Please hang back on the line for a quick live debrief. And to everyone watching, keep thriving. Have a wonderful evening.
Mm.
Here we go.